Good evening, and welcome to Black Mental Health is Black Health. I'm your host, Bronwyn Lucas, licensed professional counselor, and here to talk about all things Black mental health. And as I always say, everything impacts our mental health. We have a wonderful guest tonight, Ethel McClure, and she'll introduce herself shortly. But if you've ever been here before, you know we must start out with some deep breathing. Why? That deep breathing allows us to take more oxygen into our body, into our breath, into our brain, and allows us to calm down, kind of get rid of the cares of the day. So when I count into four slowly, you'll breathe in slowly. I'll say out, you'll exhale slowly to the count of four. So let's practice. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Well, we are here tonight to talk about community. Our topic, I am because we are. We are because I am. What is this thing called community? I'm joined by a dear friend, Ethel McClure. And I always like to let my guests introduce themselves. But one thing I'll say we have in common, we both like to be in the background. Now, I do this show, and this is my fun time to be out front. But when it comes to working in the community, I want to be in the background, making sure things happen. So we are both want to make a lot happen and don't have to be the one to get the recognition, but we're going to make sure great things happen. So Ethel, tell us who you are. Tell us something cool about you.
All right. Well, one thing, I do like jokes, and I always say cool means not so hot. So I'm here, but I'm a person that I love my family. Most of all, I love the Lord. Um, we've been married. My husband and I have been married for 46 years, and we have 3 grown children, all sons. We have 1 granddaughter, Robbie Joe, and she has allowed my name to be called Honey instead of grandmother, because on her mother's side, all of the great names have been taken.
Honey's a good name.
My dad used to sing a song, Everyone Calls Me Honey. And that was one that always stuck with me. And Robbie Joe is her name, and we made up a song. Everyone calls us Robbie Joe. And I love to go to the park to swing. And those are some of the things I like doing.
Awesome. Awesome. I'll start out with the simple question. When you hear that phrase, I am because we are because I am, what does that mean to you?
It means I'm on someone's shoulder. It means someone did something so that I could have an identity.
Wow.
It meant someone poured something negative or something positive. But it was up to me to find myself and to look at who I am. And I really didn't discover that. And I really didn't like my name until I got saved. And once I got saved, I realized that the Lord liked the name, and he liked me, and he was willing to die for me. So it gave me a whole new outlook of who I am. So I am one that seeks his heart each and every day. So that's who I am.
Awesome. Someone put in the chat, it also, they made them think about, I need you, you need me.
Yes.
We're all a part of God's body. I need you to survive. And we do need each other. When I hear I am because we are, first I think of Shape Center in Houston. That's part of the pledge, the mantra that the kids say daily. Um, and it talks about that interconnectedness that I am because you are. The better I am, the better you are. If
Yes.
I'm tearing you down, I'm tearing myself down because we're connected. That is how I believe we should feel. And so no one should have the right to tear anyone else down. You're hurting yourself if we are truly connected. So
Yes.
that I am because we are. We are one. We are together. So that was why I came up with that. I will let you guys know how I even thought about talking about community night. So each month I look to see what, there is an awareness month for everything. There is an awareness day for everything, down to National Donut Day or Ice Cream Day or Hot Dog Day. There's a day for everything. Well, July 30th is Friendship Day, International Friendship Day. And I thought, that's interesting. And so it made me think about community, though. What do we see in community? So that's how I came up with the topic of let's talk about community. And I feel community is important. In our current society, we have a lot of rudeness, a lot of
Oh,
disrespect, a lot of just plain hatred and mean spiritedness that doesn't generate a good community. So I want to talk about just the positive side. So the other statement I'm going to ask you about, Ethel, when you hear "I am my brother's keeper," what does that mean to you?
it means I need to say yes. It means I need to be who God has called me to be. And the answer is yes. Be willing to what He has us to do. And so when I looked that up and even thought about the movie, it was the unimaginable of what someone goes through. And then we still have to accept the calling to say yes. And that means relying on God to get us through that. So I am because we are, and we are because I am. I am my brother's keeper is a real hard one because we can't always keep up with our brother, our sister, but there's still a jointed connection as far as the habitat where we have to be able to love even when they're not so lovely.
Mm-hmm.
We can't avoid all the activities, but we can avoid how we respond. And that's part of I am.
That's deep. And when you think about being my brother's keeper, am I responsible for my brother, my sister? Oh, you mean my biological brother and sister? Oh, okay, good.
Like,
No,
yeah.
it's a little bigger than that. And when you think about it, man, how much do we want to be responsible for someone?
Mhm.
What are we responsible for? Well, there can be so many things, but we can be responsible for just their existence. If I am because we are, I am better because you're better. So part of my being your keeper is to make sure things are better for you. How do we do that? There's so many things, and I'm going to get to a lot of what you do. But I have one more definition for you, one more question.
Okay.
When you say, hear the word community, what does that mean to you? We're talking about we're connected, we're our brother's keeper, we're community. What in the world is a community to you?
Resilience.
Mm,
It's not just the community, my neighborhood, it's outside of the scope, but it's ownership. Community to me means I'm a part of this. So it's a jointed effort, it's a jointed responsibility, and again, it's a jointed liability too.
a jointed liability. And it really is.
Mhm.
And that's why we don't want to consider my brother's keeper, don't want to consider community because it's a jointed liability. And that
Mhm.
goes back to me to I am because we are because I am. So it's together. If I'm good, you're good. If I'm not good, you're not good. There's a liability in that. That's kind of scary. That,
It's
yeah, ooh, that's a burden.
it's a part of listening too. And at the same time, I love going on airplanes, and when they give the instruction, put the mask on you first. And we hit turbulence and we're instructed because you have to be in position to help someone. Then
Mm,
you help someone is the same way with here, meaning every day I have to take off what is not supposed to be on me. Every
mm,
night I have to even stop and pray for someone uh, who is not lovely. And even through some of my experiences, I've discovered my heart wasn't right. And that shocked me. I was like, I did that? Yeah, yeah. So
mm-hmm.
thank God we serve a forgiving God.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. Someone says that when they hear, "And my brother's keeper," it reminds them of Cain and Abel. When God asked Cain, "Where's Abel?" Well, God already, of course, knew the answer, but it says it's to love your brother, care for them, and do no harm.
Oh,
Community equals togetherness. And when we think about do no harm, it's not just physical harm,
mhm,
it's emotional. And those emotional hurts that we can cause another person can be even more devastating than the physical hurts we could
mhm,
cause somebody and last even longer. I can break my arm and it heals, but you can break my heart and it may take much longer to heal.
mhm.
Yes.
It's like an onion at that point. It's a thinner piece of film that has been removed. But even when I think of Cain and Abel, I think of Cain and Abel through God. And so I tried to shorten it to kind of think about the two brothers and how quick jealousy, how quick hatred can come up. And that's why it's really so important when the Lord does, the Holy Spirit reveals your heart on issues. It's not something you should shy away from. It's something at that point lean into because this might be a valuable lesson to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, two brothers, one was jealous of the other and murder. And this is what we're seeing every day. Here we are in Houston. And this week we have two funerals, and the two young ladies are under 25 years of age. And I just don't understand how someone could hate someone so much that something happens that it takes a life.
Mm-hmm. That's a hard one. I don't get it either. And it happens daily. Someone says we are unwilling to be responsible like Cain,
Mhm.
and when you're not responsible for taking care of your brother, your sister, then it's easy to murder them. It's easy not to because it's not my fault, not on me. And when
Mhm.
that is how you're feeling, yes, it is easy to not take ownership of what's going on.
And
Very.
that's why I went back to the community as a jointed ownership.
Mm-hmm.
It is a liability at the same time. And when I came across that, I was like, yeah, because at the same time, we want to say, my neighbors, the community that I'm in, where I live. That's one of the reasons we chose to move to where we are. But it doesn't mean I can't drive down the street and be in another community. And there I am. Something takes place. What am I able to do? What have I been prepared for? Um, I'm not as quick as some of the young people to get out the camera and videotape. Sometimes I wish I were. But, uh, I, I think at the same time, we have to give account.
Mm-hmm.
So we might put ourselves in danger. In fact, every day we are. And especially when we go back to the two young ladies that lost their lives. It's that
And what
easy.
were the circumstances around them? I'm not in Houston, and others are not. So, can you share what were the situations?
One, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she fell from a 13th story building, apartment, or wherever she was. And the other one, her boyfriend mistaken her for an intruder. She's in the bathroom and he's mistaken her for an intruder. these are things that just don't make sense to me. I I can't even imagine there again the unimaginable of what people are going through in order to cope with that.
Mm.
Um, just
And
like the uh-huh.
I was saying that's where community can come in. You know, when you hear these unimaginable things, what can you do to um, soothe, work with those who are left behind? You know, and it's easy to say, well, I don't know them, so it's nothing I can do. And so, even if you can't directly impact that situation, it might spur you to do something in your community, something in your sphere of influence to make a difference. Reach out to someone who's hurting.
Mhm.
Speaking of that, what are some ways you support your community? And when I think of the grief and hurting, tell me something about some things that you do that support community.
My husband and I serve in the church, and a couple of the things that we do is the marriage ministry. And that is something that Pastor Walter August does. And he's really big with marriages because that's what makes a stronger community when we have a husband and a wife. At the same time, it's amazing and it's not a bad thing, but it's when they do learn something from other married couples, and that is helpful because there are times, well, I'll give you an example. Sometimes it's hard to understand that men are more responsible for the marriage than a woman is. We take on their name, and just even hearing why is it more on us is we need everyone to step up to the plate. And what we say about marriage is not 50-50. Marriage is 100%, 100%. The other thing that we come across in married couples are a lot of times they're grieving. So we support grief share. And grief share is usually on Thursday night, the same time you have yours. So I, I hit and miss at times, but grief share is something for everyone to understand that God collects their tears. And so every tear that they shed is very important. Another thing that I haven't done much of, but working with the children, I used to work more with the 9 to 11-year-old. And working with them, one of the things that I discovered was we love crafts, art, we love working in the Bible and hearing stories. Uh, but I have an artist that I really like, and it's John Biggers. And he has this one display of shotgun houses. And his mother was big on quilting. So if anyone has ever seen any of John Biggers' painting, you can see the symmetry and the lines, and they're really quilts if you really look at them. Um, but he did a display of 5 women on
Mhm.
their porch, and it's my favorite one. And my mother had this one in her home, and she said, "I just love this picture because shotgun homes were designed. If you shot a bullet through one house, through the door, it went out the back, and so on and so on and so on." And I told her the reason I like this one is because John Biggers displayed women on every porch. 3 of the women are blocking their doors, and you can see the grief on them. There are no men in this painting, this particular one. But if you look carefully, the fourth lady has a dining room table. You can see she'll feed you, but before you walk in, she has a little wash tub. Like, I'll wash your feet and come in, hospitality. And the fifth one, you see a bed. And it showed me that men come and go in your lives. But if you look carefully at each woman, each one is holding a house in front of her stomach, in front of her womb. And that showed me that anyone you let in your home affects you the rest of your life.
Mm.
The fourth lady who had the higher standard, if you look closely at her house that she's holding and how she's dressed, there's standards for her. And there's steps on her house. And I just love it because it has really shown me just be careful who you let in. And that makes me think of the two ladies. I don't know the circumstances, but there again.
When you say that, I take it back to community and who you let in, and who you let into your personal life, because they were connected. Those houses, I know that pain. When you look
Mm-hmm.
at it, these houses are together. They are in community.
Yes.
They are in joint community.
Yes.
They are neighbors.
Yes.
And each neighbor can be very different.
Mm-hmm.
It takes it back to how much do you know your neighbors? So many people now don't even know the names of their neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
not on either side, across the street, just in that small sphere, don't know the names of their neighbors. And each one has a different standard, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
Each one has
Mm-hmm.
a house, each one has something represent. Some are more closed, some are more open. But if we're all in community, because that's a community,
That's a community.
how connected are we with our community?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are we the ones who are standing in front of the door and it's
Mm-hmm.
closed?
Mm-hmm.
I'm closed in and you won't get in.
Mm-hmm.
You can
Arms
come
folded.
in. You can come in, but you're going to come in on my terms.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we, with that
Mm-hmm.
community? And when you think about the marriages that you work with, being a couple, that is your community of your home, but every couple is a community. And one
Yeah.
of the things I like to think, when you work with couples, when you work with anyone, those grieving and grief share couples, the children you work with, when you change that one person, you have changed their community because they're going back different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Uh, Another thought came into the church where grief share was not just for the adults or for the widows. Grief share is for children too, because children grieve. And this particular counselor was able to find a curriculum for that. And that's something new that we're starting at Bethel's Family. And it will involve for children who are grieving because, number one, children are dying younger and younger. Um, even I failed to tell you, I even had the pleasure of during the pandemic teaching, and that was an eye opener for me. And then this last semester just closed. We had one little girl who lost her mother, and such a unique name that she has. But this little lady, she was always singing, I was born by a river. I'm laughing, and I know every time I think about her when she sings that, but off tune. She could not sing it, but I could hear her. And she was really grieving. She was really trying her best to cope with the situation. Uh, she's in the first grade, and truly she should have been in the third grade. Excuse me, 8 years old, turning 8. And so something happened during COVID because she wasn't in school. She missed a lot of days. And then to lose a parent, that's a community. Where I was in the school, that was another community. Um, at the same time, it took the whole village of the school to really help and to understand what was going on and to give her some support. And what was beautiful, the students learned to give her support. They couldn't even imagine not having a mother.
Mm-hmm.
Just something that simple. And just as you said with the community of houses, it's almost like, yes, we're individually housed, but we're all in this together. When one cries, we all cry.
And that goes back to that I am because we are because I am. I'm responsible. You know, when you say that, when we think about community and we break it down into smaller entities, we have, as you say, our biggest, our neighborhood. And we think about that. Or we think about community being based on your gender or based on your religion, based on, you know, communities or groups that you're in. And so when we break it down, we are a part of so many different communities. The school is a community, and schools that are run well really function as a caring community. And I have worked in the school system for probably about 17 years over my lifetime. I've seen some that were warm, nurturing, caring communities. I've seen some that were just institutions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In either way, it is a community.
Yes.
Even if it's an institution, that is the community that it exists in, you know, just the four walls, and we're just here to house these people.
Mm-hmm. Which is, yeah.
Because teaching and truly teaching is not just reading, writing, and arithmetic. It is teaching the heart. Is like you said, this child, her mother died, and she's 8 years old, and she doesn't know how to cope with that because what 8-year-old does know how to
Mm-hmm.
cope with that. So being a part of a community is we're going to love on you, we're going to take care of you, um, and that's how we're going to be a community. And that's what education is about. As a counselor, one year I was an elementary counselor, and it was one of our fourth graders.
Mm-hmm.
His mother died. And so I'm the counselor. So I was tasked with going and tell his class. And these kids, this was a community school. So
Mm-hmm.
these kids have been together, most of them since kindergarten.
Right.
Um, and so I had to go and explain that. So explaining to fourth graders death. They know death, but it was very abstract, and it made it very real to know that one of your classmates' mother died. And it was, well, how do we talk to him? These were some of the questions they asked. But because this was a very community oriented school, the mindset, they were already ready in community to
Oh.
figure out how do we be a community without knowing the word of we're being a community, but how do
Mm-hmm.
we basically how do we show him love?
Mm-hmm. And
And it
see,
was going.
I'm sorry. And see, my little girl, she came into the school system late to begin with. She had been out of school. This is a school that was first through fifth grade. Didn't even have a kindergarten class.
Mm,
So this is the first. And then to come late in the year and unknown to her at the time that she arrived that her mother was deceased, she came in trying to guard herself. So she came
mhm.
in almost as a bully, you know, um, and insulting other kids. And sometimes that's how you know something is wrong.
Mhm. And
So,
that's part of the role of the community, whatever community we're in, whether it's your church, your neighborhood, your friend group, your family, any organization you're in, is to not just take at face value what you see, what
yes.
someone gives you. When you're in community, you look beyond it. So the person who is looking like they're the bully,
Hmm.
the saying goes, and someone else and remember, you know, hurting people hurt people
Yes.
because that's all they know is hurt. And it's a defense mechanism. I'm already hurt. You are not going to get the opportunity to hurt me. So
Exactly.
I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to push you back. I'm not going to let you into my world because if I do, you'll hurt me. So
Yes.
there's this wall, there's this defense mechanism. You can't get in. Mm-mm. You
That's
are
it.
not getting in.
That's
And
it.
we have to look past that and begin to see, especially someone so young, what is going on in your world.
Mm-hmm.
And even adults.
Mm-hmm. And even in marriages, uh, I've discovered a lot of times I'm hearing something different, even though you have irritated me because you do this, you do that, and you said this, and I'm hearing now we confess to know the Lord, but do we really know Him? Do you have you accepted Him? And so But when you go into a relationship with someone, you have to meet them where they are. It is a little different. You can't just say, you need to be saved and you need to. No, God, when He sent Jesus, He showed so many examples of how to love someone through it. The woman at the well, know, He told everything about her, but He asked something of her first. And why would you want me to give you water? And the fact that she came during the day, she didn't want to be seen by anyone, and He knew where she would be. I think that's part of intentional, what we have to be when we're in the classroom, when we're sitting on the bus next to someone, even the airplane. Um, this is even masked up. Um, I was alarmed that someone was scolding me for wearing a mask. It was just a hoax. And he followed me around the store just to make sure that I knew how displeasing and how foolish I looked wearing a mask. And,
And you're like we were saying earlier, we live in a disrespectful society.
yes.
And it is his choice not to wear a mask. It is your choice to wear one. And I can let you be you.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's part of that respect. And that's part of community,
That is.
understanding and respecting each other for who they are.
And yet, I am my brother's keeper.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, all I could do is just love him through it. So there were things that even happened during COVID that I realized that I had a heart issue myself, and that shocked me.
So tell us what you mean by that.
Well, in the classroom, I had a teacher that was afraid of COVID, and she didn't mind using Lysol spray for everything, and she wanted the kids at a certain distance. And to see that every day, my heart was really hurting. Like, she can't do this. And I became more of a bully with trying to not understand her. I'm like, I know I'm right. This is right. And I wouldn't budge. And it wasn't until my husband came across, I said, well, a scripture. And I said, what does it mean, judge not, lest ye be judged? And he said, you know exactly what that means. Well, I almost judged him because I didn't like hearing that, because I wanted him to say, she's not right for what she's doing. And then how can I take a speck out of someone else's eye when there's a log in mine? And I still wasn't grasping that. I didn't even see the log until she sprayed me with Lysol, the room, and I picked up my can and sprayed her back. And then I realized I did something that was wrong. So I went and reported myself. And thank God for the wisdom of the principal. And she took action. And of course, no one was to use Lysol anymore or any chemicals. And I thought that was pretty good. But then I started thinking about my actions. It really bothered me that. And someone said, you, Sister McClure, you sprayed somebody. What? And it dawned on me, have I really prayed for this person? When someone is rushing all day, benefit of the doubt, not knowing what she's going through before she gets to work, have I taken the time to hope she comes on time, hope she has a good day, let me help her with this, let me help her with that? And the biggest part was me apologizing because I was wrong. Two wrongs don't make a right. And we ended up being really good friends. And I just thank the Lord that He showed me the log in my eye. And that was a hard lesson, but it was a loving lesson. Everyone deserves respect.
And that is what community is about, being able to see a person for who they are, where they are.
Yes.
But being able to admit, I was wrong.
I was wrong.
And that's a very difficult thing for people to do, is to be able to say, I was wrong. No, not me. Mm-mm, it was you. She knows she wrong. She did this and this. That's on her. I ain't do nothing.
I even had the neck going.
Yeah. Hmm.
Until I sprayed. I was like, oh, it really shocked me. Yes.
Yeah.
And
It's when we're in community and we're our brother's keeper, our sister's keeper, we are responsible to take that other step. And it's okay to say I am wrong. And a lot of times people see being able to say I'm wrong as a weakness, but it's really a strength,
it's a
because
step.
it takes a whole lot more
Mhm.
of you and a whole lot more energy to say I was wrong. Forgive me. That's a hard one, but
Mhm.
it's a very important one. I want to ask you this. We have a little time left, so I want to think about. I know you work with during COVID. You work
Mhm.
with people in groups virtually. I mean, your marriage ministry, and the things you do to impact your community were
Right.
virtual. Um, did you see a difference in the way people interact virtually versus, in person? And now that people are back in person, are you seeing a difference? Is there any difference in interaction that you noticed?
Just a little. At first, I didn't see any change. I thought it was great that we were still able to go into homes via Zoom to assist and help because a lot of couples were really frightened. But there were pre existing issues before COVID. And
Mm-hmm.
all COVID did was just put more fire under it. Um, I don't know the statistics on divorces, but I would say it was high during COVID. And the changes that we saw, most for the most part, being Zoom, it was really good. But we noticed some of the same things that were reoccurring were those who weren't really trying. And those were the ones that really did not want to get out. Those are the ones that did not want to engage in the public, and they continue to work in a little bit with fear. Yet, those that have come in to be face to face, we've seen real growth. I can't help to wonder, the five senses, the five love languages, if that was instrumental. And it makes me really think that they really wanted to be touched. They wanted to hold hands. They wanted to know that we were going to open the Bible. We can't save anyone. And so we have to go by the scriptures. And this is God's size problem. I'm just thankful our church never closed their doors during COVID. And they may not have had anyone to come in, but the doors were open for anyone who wanted to come. And so now that we are seeing couples come in to be counseled, we're seeing, praise God, better breakthroughs. Because if they're in the Sunday school class to see it, other people are there with them. And we have a saying, what's said in the classroom stays in the classroom. So they're able to really talk about what is really bugging them or what they find offensive. And then, even if they don't talk, the fact that they're hearing someone else. And you can see the look on other people's face. Well, that was the question I had to ask too. And it confirms, whereas even on Zoom, we can close our mic, we can close our photo, we can block those things. We can still have good fights when no one's looking. So I discovered that we see more of a breakthrough when they're in person than when they're in Zoom. It's not saying Zoom is not effective because Grief Share, we did that all the way through. Uh, but I discovered for some people, speaking of their five love languages, it really helped. It helped to have that public acknowledgement. I really appreciate my spouse when she does this or he does this. I find it beneficial when we take time to do things together. And that's one of the things that, as I said, that has really helped. As a matter of fact, this week we're celebrating a couple that did 50 years of marriage. And um, we get to ask them a lot of questions, and the church has opened it up for anyone to come. It's a $50 charge because they're serving dinner. But it's things like that that I'm really thankful that the community is open to help couples, um, in hopes that someone will ask that question that is bugging you or address something that you really wanted to know. So, yes, it does help to be one on one. It does help to spend time. It always helps to open your Bible and to read God's Word. It helps.
So as you see, Ethel's community is her church, and she's very involved in changing the lives of couples. And as I say, if you change the life of a couple, you change the life of that family. You change the life of not just that nuclear family, but their extended family, their neighborhood, just by making that change. COVID did a lot to impact community,
Yes.
and not in a positive way. When we were in the part of COVID where the world was shut down, people were alone. People who were introverts and
Mhm.
living alone became more introverted, not necessarily positively, and are still having trouble getting out because it was such an extended time when it was already a lot of energy for them just to get out of their house. And now, ooh, I'm good. I can work at home. I can stay at home. I can order my groceries and they come to my door. I don't have to leave my house. And they didn't for a long time. They lost that sense of community because for the extrovert, they like to be on the edges of community,
Mhm.
and maybe not as many people reached out to them. So they're there. So I say to you, if you know someone
Mhm.
who is like, haven't seen them in a while. They don't get out like they used to. We used to at least go do whatever before COVID. They don't go anymore. Be the one to be the community person to go in and say, hey, what's going on? Invite them out. Or if you know someone who's just going through, call them. This last week it was. I called a friend who was going, I knew she was just not in a good space. And so she said it was Wednesday, and she said she hadn't been out of the house, she hadn't
Mhm.
been out of bed since Sunday. I said,
Yes.
you getting up tomorrow? Said, why? Because we're going to lunch tomorrow. Just
Mhm.
I'll be at your house at whatever time I told her, we'll be there. And I went to her house. Well, I'm not ready. Okay, well, get ready. If you think because you're not ready, that stops everything, no, I'll just wait. And so sometimes you have to do that. That's what community says. Somebody might not want to be at that point or part of the community, but they need to.
Mhm.
You're going to be the one to say, okay, we're going to lunch today. Let's go. Get up. But doing something that simple shows you're part of that community. That is showing that love for that person.
Yes.
That is what community is about. We like to end every week with a call to action. What can you do? So the first thing I say is define community for yourself. However you define it, be an active part of it. Whatever, for Ethel, her community is her church, and she serves, and she doesn't just go sit on the bench. She serves. She's there working with couples. She's there part of the grief share. She's there. Her community is the school she was working with. She made it community. She looked past the little girl who wanted to be the bully and saw the little girl who was hurting.
Mhm.
So, what can you do? Where is your community? What is your community? Define it. And whatever community you choose to define and work with is the right one. Because we're all part, as I said, of so many communities. You can have a community based on your gender. I'm into women's rights. I'm into this. Whatever it is, Black Lives Matter. I want to make a difference here. It's true. All of that is true. What niche in the community do you want to serve? Define it, and work in it. Take care of yourself. Now, there's some who are so busy caring for everybody else, you don't care for yourself enough.
Mhm.
Practice that self care. Let the community take care of you when necessary. You don't always have to take care of everyone else because caregivers sometimes have trouble being cared for.
Mhm. Mhm.
So don't just be the caregiver, be able to receive. And I always like to say, vote, 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 and be an educated voter. If you don't like what's going on in our world, take some blame in it if you haven't voted.
Mhm.
Be an educated voter and vote, vote, vote. COVID is still here, so take care of your health, take care of you, take care of your community. Ethel, would you like one final thing to say? We have a few seconds left. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Just depend upon the Lord. And it says, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be anxious. Look about you. For I am your God, and I will strengthen you. Surely I will help you. Surely I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Isaiah 41 and 10.
All
Thank
right.
you, the Lord.
So thank you for sharing about your community and your great impact you have on that community. See you guys next
Thank
week.
you for having me.